Hey, what's up guys, it's Texumer talking to you here. And finally, the M2 MacBook Air pre-orders have opened. So, in today's video, I will guide you towards the MacBook Air price ladder and which computer should you buy, which ones should you avoid, and when it makes sense to go for a MacBook Pro if you decide to spend a little bit extra on the MacBook Air. So, if you don't know, I've ordered a MacBook Air, M2 MacBook Air base model to show you that I pre-ordered my M2 MacBook Pro. That's right there, my pre-order. And so I think that it's actually very important to talk about this because the M2 price ladder is somewhat tricky and it can make you spend more money than you actually need. So I've pre-ordered the complete base model because it would come the fastest. But if I were to pre-order a MacBook Air, I would go for 1 terabyte of storage, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the fastest processor, the non-bin version. Yes, this is an expensive computer, it's around $1,900, but I would go for that because it's the most future-proof M2 MacBook Air. But in today's video, let's discuss all of the best and worst configurations on the M2 MacBook Air, and this is more of a buyer's guide, if I can use this term. So, if you are enjoying this type of content on the MacBook Air and in general the Apple Silicon lineup, do not forget to drop a like down below, subscribe to my channel. I have tons of new content coming for you guys for the M2 MacBook Air. So, if you don't want to miss any of those videos, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, turn on the notification bell. So, no further ado, let's get started. So, like I was telling you, I pre-ordered my M2 MacBook Air to come on the 15th of July. So next Friday I will have it, I will do an unboxing and first impressions for you guys. But in today's video, it's more of a buyer's guide. So let's get on to my MacBook Pro so I can show you which configurations should you buy and which configurations should you not buy. So, as you know, the M2 MacBook Air comes in two options: the binned CPU and GPU, and of course, the full-on, full-fat M2. As you know, the M2, the base model starts at $11.99 and the other one comes at $100 more. So there's two options to configure. I of course got the base model just because it was coming faster than the other one. So let's start with the base model to try to tell you which ones are the better options and which ones should you avoid. As I was telling you and showing you, it starts at $11.99, so you have to be careful because this goes up very, very fast. So let's start with the base model, binned GPU and CPU. As you know, you have the option to go for $100 more, and I actually advise you for going to $100 more. But if you really want the base model, just simply put the non-binned M2 and of course go for a little bit extra storage at 512 gigabytes of storage because it will help you have around more storage to wiggle because 256 is not enough, near enough. And if you want my opinion, I think the 1 terabyte option is the way to go. And of course, then, in my opinion, you should upgrade the RAM to 16 gigabytes just to help you future-proof your device. So if you are going for the base model, completely base model, I think there's two upgrades that you should do, and I think they are worth it to future-proof your M2 MacBook Air. And they are, of course, the memory RAM and, of course, the storage. These are the two base upgrades that I would do if I was buying the M2 MacBook Air to keep. Of course, if you want the really powerful stuff and go for the 24 gigabytes and of course the 2 terabytes of storage, even at the binned version and you go for the $100 more, you will see that this version starts at $2,500. And at this money, you can go for an M1 Pro MacBook Pro with some upgrades. And so I don't think that this computer is worth it. Even if you like this design, the M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch still has this design. It has a mini LED display. It has better things. It has the better CPU and GPU. So I think that going for a full-on, full-fat M2 MacBook Air is not worth it. So like I was telling you, the perfect configuration in my opinion is the 16 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte of storage, and of course the non-binned version of the M2. So it starts at $18.99, which is $100 cheaper than the cheapest M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch. You still have the M2 full fat, you have 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you have 1 terabyte of storage, which is way more than you would have at the base model M1 Pro, still coming at $100 cheaper. And you have the good design, it's more portable, it's thinner, and it still has the new display size. It doesn't have the new mini LED display, it doesn't have the promotion technology, but if you don't care about that, and if you don't care about performance, I think that this is one of the best choices you can do for the M2 MacBook Air. But if you want to go for a more budget line MacBook Air, then I would advise you keep the 16 gigabytes of RAM and try to lower to 512 gigabytes of storage. And if you don't really care about CPU, just go for the binned version, and then you will go at $15.99. I wouldn't feel comfortable telling you to buy an 8 gigabyte version of RAM on this computer and a 256 gigabyte version, just because either these two, like the 8 gigabyte is expensive, it's a $200 jump, and the 256 is also $200 jump. But I do think that this $400 that you are spending now are justified because they will future-proof your device. In the future, I think that you won't be able to upgrade this computer, as you know. Everything is sort of done. So I do advise you to try to spend the money now so you don't have to change the computer in the future, later on the road. So yes, this 16 gigabyte of version option for you, I think it's the best option. And of course the 512. I don't think it's the perfect one. I think you should spend the extra money to go for the 1 terabyte option. But if you don't have that extra $200 and you don't want to shell out $400 just on storage, then the 512 might be the option, and then buy 1 terabyte of external storage, SSD storage, by less money than that. If you really want to cheap out, just go for the 256 gigabyte option, but keep in mind, this one has binned storage, so it's not as fast when using RAM. I would advise you going for the 512. In my opinion, it's the better option. You wouldn't go bad spending an extra $400. And so the price would be around $1,600, which is around $400 cheaper than the M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch, which is way cheaper than before. And you still have the amazing design, the amazing things of the M2 MacBook Air. But now let's take a look at some other things. If you go for the non-binned version of the M2, you choose to go for the completely base model of this computer, you would spend $12.99, the same price as the M2 MacBook Pro. And let's see why you should not go for the M2 MacBook Pro. Because if you go for the non-binned version M2, you will have the same CPU and the same GPU as the M2 MacBook Pro, and the same RAM, the same storage, the same everything. The only thing that changes is the design. You have, of course, the same CPU, same RAM, same storage. You have a better display because it has less bezels, as you can see here. You still have more ports. You have two Thunderbolt 2 ports, and of course you have MagSafe charging, a 1080p face camera, and of course a ton of new stuff. You have the touch bar still on the other one, but that's the only thing. I think that the MacBook Air still has a better design. Let's see the gallery so I can show you some pictures. As you can see here, the design of the M2 MacBook Air is much more modern with the new ports. It's thin, it has the headphone jack. It's beautiful. I love this design. Of course, I would not advise you going for the M2 MacBook Air if you are not going for more base model device. If you are spending too much money here, like going completely all out on this computer, then it's $24.99, and it ends up being a very, very expensive computer that I would advise you going for the Pro model of the MacBook Pro lineup, for the M1 Pro 14-inch or the M1 Pro 16-inch, even if you have the money, which starts at $24.99 for the 14-inch with the full-fat M1 Pro. And of course, if you go for the 16-inch, then it's a little bit more money than that, $27.99. But this is a great device. If you go for a 16 gigabytes version, if you want to go for a middle ground, then 1 terabyte, 16 gigabytes of option, and the non-binned CPU, $18.99. It's still a very competitive price for a computer that is beautiful. It's amazing, amazing colors, and still cheaper with more storage than the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. The only downside is, you can see here, the shipping is 2 to 3 weeks. If you only have and choose, of course, the binned version, it will be much faster. Like, let me try to choose the other one. 256. I mean, now you can see that the base model is completely logged out because a lot of people are buying it. But right now I bought mine. It's coming on the 5th of July. So, I mean, this is the computer for the reviewers. I do not advise you going for this one. 16 gigabytes of option for RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. If you decide that you need a little more power than these two, then let me know in the comments down below if you want a comparison between the binned M2 and the non-binned M1 Max that I have, which is the most powerful M1 Max available on a portable computer. And let me know in the comments down below if you want a comparison between the cheapest, which I have, the cheapest and most new powerful Apple Silicon computer, the M2 MacBook Air, and of course the most powerful currently available MacBook Pro, the M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro, which I'm using right now. So let me know in the comments down below which do you want to prefer and the comparison that you want to have. Let me know in the comments down below also your configuration. Which one would you choose? Would you choose 8 gigabytes of RAM, 16, 24, and which types of storage do you normally buy on a MacBook? 256, 512, 1 terabyte, 2 terabytes, and would you pay an extra $100 for a non-bent M2? Let me know all of those things on the comments down below, and also please comment your configuration. Let me know which configuration would you buy and how much are you willing to spend on the M2. That could be quite a study that we could do on the comments down below. So while you're there, do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, turn on the notification bell so you can keep up with all the content coming for the M2 MacBook Air. So that was it. As I was telling you during all of this video, I think that going for the baseline configurations is better than going for the higher end configuration, just because you get very close to the MacBook Pro territory. But if it makes sense for you to have a lighter design and to simply have the beautiful midnight blue colors, or even have a less big and bulkier computer, don't really care about the screen, then it actually makes a lot of sense to go for the higher end options. But if you go actually very high and actually end up spending more than $2,000, then in my opinion just doesn't make any sense, because you can go for the base model MacBook Pro. Even the MacBook Air having 2 terabytes of storage and having 24 gigabytes of RAM, I don't think it's worth it. But this is the MacBook Air, this is their price ladder, and they make you spend like, oh, let me have a little bit more RAM, oh, let me have a little bit more storage, maybe it's not enough, let me future-proof this, and then you end up spending more money than you should. That's normal, that's how Apple works their price ladders. It's a way for them to make you spend more money than you actually need. They do it on all of their product lines, actually, on the iPhone product line, on the iPad being the biggest and most productive way to do it, because you can say, do you want an iPad mini? It's only $499, and you, oh sure, I want an iPad mini, but it's a little bit small, and then Apple is like, oh, you can go for the iPad Air, and you go for the iPad Air, and this is big enough, I like this a lot, but I mean, if I have the 128 or 256 gigabyte option, the 64 is not enough, let me spend for the 256 gigabyte option. Then you see, oh, it's $50 less, and $50 more, I can get the iPad Pro, which has 120 Hz, better speakers, it has 128 gigabytes of storage. Yeah, I think I will go for the iPad Pro. And then you spend the extra $50, and without even know it, like Apple has just upcharged you $400 to $500 more than you would have. So, I mean, it's funny, yes, it's how Apple does their business, it works, and so that's why they do it. In the MacBook Air lineup, yes, they do it still. I do think that the reason the M2 MacBook Pro exists is for the M2 MacBook Air base model look like a very good deal, and it actually is. It's a very, very good deal. I will have my M2 MacBook Air base model, completely base model, the binned M2. Let's see how that works against my fully maxed out M1 Max MacBook Pro. I will have the base model RAM, base model storage, so I can test out the theory that the base model storage is bad in terms of SSD speeds. I will test all of those things out, and if you enjoy that type of content, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, because you won't have to miss those types of videos. But like I was telling you, and to reiterate it again, the MacBook Air is an amazing computer. If you go for the middle lineup, the base model lineup, that's in my opinion the better options for you to go. But if you decide to go for the higher end options, keep in mind that there's a MacBook Pro, and the M1 Pro MacBook Pro is still an amazing computer. Even the base model one, the $2,000 option, is a very, very good deal. And if you are considering going for a $2,000 even more MacBook Air, take in consideration the existence of the M1 Pro MacBook Pro. But that's it. I think that's no more information for the buyer's guide. I think that you should buy the M2 MacBook Air. You should actually buy the M2 MacBook Air, not the M2 MacBook Pro, which I did a video telling you guys not to buy. You shouldn't buy that computer. It's bad. In my opinion, it's one of the worst deals that Apple can offer on the Apple Silicon lineup, but it exists, and I think that you should simply go for the M2 MacBook Air. And if you want to buy an M2 MacBook Air, be careful, because they are very, very backlogged. Today, I tried to pre-order a more powerful version of the M2 MacBook Air to test also, and it's only coming 1 to 8th of August, and I decided it was not worth it, and so I just simply pre-ordered the base model. But let me know in the comments down below which is the version of the MacBook Air you will pre-order, like base model, which one, how many gigabytes of RAM, how many gigabytes of storage, and are you going for the bin version, non-bin version? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're there, do not forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for all of your support lately. I've been so lucky to have you. So thank you guys a lot. This has been Tech Summer talking to you here. Do not forget to my coming up M2 MacBook Air content. Bye.